You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
I've been a participant in some of the most insidious lies and witnessed to deeds that no crazed man can imagine. I spent years watching you from my lofty position to know that you were the one I could trust.
And why did you lie to me?
There still exist some secrets which should remain secret. Truths that people are just not ready to know.
Who are you to decide that?
The world's reaction to such knowledge would be far too dangerous.
Dangerous? You mean in the sense of outrage? Like the reaction to the Kennedy assassination, or MIAs, or radiation experiments on terminal patients. Watergate, Iran-Contra, Roswell, Tuskegee experiments. Where will it end?
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth! Get out!
Or what? You'll kill me?
Always remember, dissension's the greatest form of patriotism.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies.
We have before us the opportunity to forge a new world order.
Yes, we can. If you think.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
A lie is most convincingly hidden between two truths.
I guess it won't end.
No! I don't have time for this. This is about saving the future of humanity.
We know things are bad, worse than bad. We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther. I want you to get up right now. Go to your windows, open them, and stick your head out and yell, I'm a human being. My life has value, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You shall not pass!
You're listening to the Revolutionary Radio Project with your host, Rob Skiba.
Hello and welcome to the Revolutionary Radio Project. I am your host, Rob Skiba. And tonight, I'm going to be speaking with my friend, Doc Marquis. And I'm going to make sure that he is here. Doc, can you hear me?
Hello.
There he is. Very good. I didn't get your bio, so we'll just go ahead and have you introduce yourself. You've been on my show before when I was over on Blog Talk, but for the sake of my listeners here on Truth Frequency Radio Network, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, very easily, in a nutshell, I was raised in an Illuminati family, as you well know, Rob. And at the time after I was dedicated to the cause of Lucifer when I was age 3, I was a 7th generation Illuminati witch. My family's background goes all the way to 1789 in this. So needless to say, I learned quite a lot of different things. I mean, far and above most people in the Illuminati. I'm talking about names, dates, places, times, events. I mean, I've got the dirt on I don't know how many different people now, and what was it? It was on April 15th, 1979, I became a born-again Christian, and it's been 36 years now, Rob, that I've been fighting against the Illuminati, exposing their plans, letting everyone know about the New World Order, what and who is really behind our government, so on and so forth. I mean, I've done dozens of television programs, you know, like 2020, Oprah Winfrey, Geraldo Rivera, 60 Minutes, Hard Copy, name it. More than 1,000 radio shows. I've got a DVD series on my website called Secrets of the Illuminati, where we go into the real hardcore secrets of the Illuminati themselves. And I'm not talking about some of this silly nonsense you find on the web or, you know, all those so-called wannabes are putting out there. No, I'm showing you the actual truth. And as a matter of fact, Rob, at the end of this month, I'm going to the studios again to record my new DVD. And needless to say, keeping this Ministry of Gods going, it keeps me busy.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. And we're going to be sharing the stage together about a month from now down in Austin, I believe.
Yes, that's right. John Gableson. Yeah,
the Back to the Future conference. And I think the website is, let's see, www. It's like backtothefuture.com. So it's bttfc.com. It's the letters for the Back to the Future conference, BTTFC. And that's July 30th through August 1st. What subjects are you going to be talking on there?
Oh, hold on. Let me put my glasses on because I've got the list. I've got it right here. Since this is the first time I've done the conference there, one of the first things I want to touch about is the dollar bill, because most folks believe that the two seals on the back of the $1 bill are the two seals of the United States of America, and they're not. They are the seals of the Order of the Illuminati. And I'll prove this, you know, during the live demonstration, but there's a lot more to it than just that. Let's see. I'm also going to be talking about the Illuminati Playing Cards, dictators of the Illuminati, and we're also going to be speaking on the Rapture.
Excellent. That should be a good time. Looking forward to seeing you again. It's always a pleasure whenever we can get together.
It's always great to see you, Rob. I love sitting down and picking your brain.
Likewise, and I'm looking forward to picking your brain a little bit more tonight about the Illuminati. Now, let's kind of just go back and define what is the Illuminati, who created it, when did it get started?
Okay. Well, we have to go back to 1773 to the University of Ingolstadt in Bavaria, Germany. There was a young professor there known as Dr. Adam Weishaupt. Now, understand, he was 25 years old, and he was given the seat to the professorship of canon law. Now, he's only 25 years old, and he's given the entire, you know, in other words, charge of the entire department. That's unheard of. I mean, nowadays, Rob, most people who's given the chair to the professorship of whatever, they're usually in their 50s, sometimes 60. So this tells us automatically, and it's quite true, Adam Weishaupt was one of those rare geniuses. You get one or two maybe in a generation. Like, and the last one would have been like Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla, two of the greatest minds of that day and age. And Dr. Adam Weishaupt was such of a mind. Well, anyways, during that time, there was a major problem going on throughout Europe. You see, the Order of the Jesuits had basically been trying to run Europe their own way, and this gave the European kings, the queens, whoever was in charge of what monarchy at that time, they really finally got so sick and tired of the Jesuits that most of them wrote a letter to the Pope, and I think that was Clement III at the time. They basically wrote him a letter stating that it was basically three main problems they had with the Jesuits. First of all, if they were a priestly class, how did they amass such, you know, a treasure? They were filthy rich. Second, the Jesuits were interfering with the affairs of the monarchy. You know, whatever may have been going on between different kingdoms, the Jesuits were constantly interfering in what was going on in the politics. And third of all, the one thing they really didn't like is that the Jesuits answered to no one in the land, not one person, except to the Pope himself. So as far as the Jesuits were concerned, they were exempt by any human law. No, they didn't listen to the king. They did whatever they wanted to.
Sorry, is that the Pope or the Black Pope that they answer to?
No. They answer to the Pope. The Pope answers to the Black Pope.
Oh, okay.
Though most people don't know that. But so this was the main problem, and even before they Clement III, as it says, I believe it was Clement III, even before he made his final decision, the monarchs and whoever was the head of whatever nation already told them, pack your bags and get out of here. Now, the Pope, not wanting to lose control of Catholic Europe at the time, decreed that the Jesuits would be disbanded. Well, this really hit Dr. Adam Weishaupt hard because he himself was a Jesuit. And because of what had happened, he had a very, very mean axe to grind. Now, enters another person called Meyer Amschel Bauer. He would later change his family's last name to Rothschild. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And basically, for over a year at that point, Meyer Amschel Rothschild had invited Dr. Weishaupt over to his mansion on several occasions to wine and dine him. Basically, he was checking out this guy to see if he was the type of person he was looking for. Now, what happened in 1773, once the Jesuits had been disbanded, the next time Rothschild had invited Dr. Weishaupt over for dinner, he had 12 of his most influential friends there at the same time. In short, basically they told Weishaupt, we know you possess the occult knowledge and skill to put all this together. We have the money. You do it, we'll back it. Now, it took Weishaupt 3 years to write out the organizational structure, the religious belief, the practices, everything about the Order of the Illuminati. But on May 1st, 1776, he had accomplished what no man in human history had done. He had actually actualized Illuminism. Illuminism has always been around. It was around during the ancient days of Babylon under Nimrod and Semiramis, the original co-founders of the very first religion on the face of the earth, and that was witchcraft. Not Judaism, as some people believe. I mean, witchcraft predates Judaism by at least a good 15, maybe 2,000 years. But Weishaupt had actually done what no one done before. He made Illuminism a reality. And ever since that time, the Illuminati had been growing in power like no one's business. What was it? I think it was just within 13 years, they had 2,000 of the wealthiest noblemen, people with letters, credentials in the order of the Illuminati. And ever since that time, there's been a 7-part plan, and this was written by Weishaupt himself. He wrote a 7-part plan to where once you get to the 7th part, you establish and create a new world order. Now, does that sound familiar to you, my old friend?
Yeah, very much so, and there's nothing new about it. As you said, it goes all the way back to Nimrod.
Babylon.
Yeah, in Babylon.
Yeah.
So would you say, are they connected with Freemasons?
This is where it gets interesting. A lot of people ask me that question. You see, in order to help grow his new occult order, Weishaupt had been infiltrating other occult schools and mystic schools of his day and age, like the Masons, the Rosicrucians, so on and so forth. As a matter of fact, I believe he became eventually a Master Mason or a third-degree Mason. Now, it was on July 16, 1782, that Weishaupt had sent his right-hand man, Baron Adolf von Koenig, to meet with the representatives from the 23 supreme Masonic councils of their day and age. Now, after meeting with these leaders for 30 different sessions, those leaders signed a blood contract vowing to follow the 7-part plan of Dr. Weishaupt towards the creation of a new world order. And what's really interesting, this Congress of Wilhelmsbad, you can look it up in the Encyclopedia of Masonry that was written by Albert Mackey, who's considered one of the 3 greatest of all Masonic writers in history, and you'll find quite a lot of information about that famous Congress that went back on. I mean, that was on more than 200 years ago.
Wow. So, I mean, are they like, is the Illuminati sort of like the umbrella for all secret societies?
Oh,
in
yes.
some way?
Oh, basically, yeah, there isn't a secret society or an occult order that doesn't answer to them. And given the Masonic order, right now, and I can tell you honestly without fear of contradiction, 95% of all Masons haven't got a clue what's going on within their own temples. Yeah. It's the top 5%, the leadership position, that know what's going on because the Illuminati have taken over them through the Congress of Wilhelmsbad, and ever since that time, the Illuminati never had to set up their own builders or anything. They already had all the Masonic temples that they could work through. An interesting historic fact, if you go to 1789 at the Great French Revolution, you find out through the sister of Marie Antoinette and Duke Karl Theodor of Bavaria, he was the elector of Bavaria, you find out that letters of warning had been sent to Queen Marie Antoinette by her own sister, warning her that there was the Illuminati working through the French Masonic Lodge, and they were there to try to overthrow the monarchy. Marie Antoinette basically just thought her sister was just, I can't remember the exact word. Let's just say, was a bit exaggerating her misunderstanding of what was going on. In other words, Marie Antoinette just poo-pooed it away as if, her sister was, you just don't understand politics. Well, unfortunately, the French Revolution happened and Marie Antoinette and her husband, Louis, lost their heads.
Ouch. So,
oh, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, like Freemasons have been around for a long time, Rosicrucians have been around for a long time, and others have been, Knights Templar. There's been a lot of these organizations been around for a very long time. So the Illuminati just kind of swooped in and became sort of the godfather of all of them?
In essence, not the godfather, because the Rosicrucians have been around since about the 14th century. Knights Templar, we're talking 10th century. The Masons, contrary to popular belief, and no matter how desperately they try, the oldest and the first of all the Masonic temples can be traced back to the Aberdeen Lodge in Scotland in 1717. They try to claim direct ascendancy from the actual stonemasons, real stonemasons now, who built the Temple of Solomon.
Right.
They try to claim direct ascendancy to that, and that's hogwash. That's absolute hogwash. As I said, you can trace it back to 1717, the Aberdeen Lodge in Scotland. They will try to come up with all this imaginary stuff, which isn't worth 2 cents. It really isn't. But the Rosicrucians, they are old, but not as old as the Knights Templar. As I said, they were about 11th century, maybe a little bit further back to the 10th. But because of their incredible power, every single occult group or mystic society all follow the orders of the Illuminati. I'll give you, for instance, go back to, wait a second, you're too young to remember this. I keep forgetting.
Try me anyway.
Even though you wear that mustache and goatee to try to hide your youthful age there.
Try
okay. Back in the 70s, do you remember the La Cosa Nostra's war that was going on in California?
Was it gang war?
Yeah, the La Cosa Nostra.
Yeah.
The older listening people will remember this. You see, it appeared to the police and to regular civilians that there was some sort of war, some sort of turf war going on within certain mafia families. Now, that's what it appeared to be. Interesting enough, as soon as it started, it stopped. And to this very day, the police don't know why. However, what was going on at the time was, and I'll bring you back a little in history before I explain, the second head of the Order of the Illuminati was Giuseppe Mazzini. Mazzini created the Mafia. He created the Mafia as a strong arm for the Illuminati. Mafia is just an anagram. Those 5 letters translated from the Italian means Mazzini authorizes fires, thefts, and murders. And if you look at the way the Mafia operates to this very day, those are still the 3 preferred methods that they use to, shall we say, get people to cooperate with them. But it was through Giuseppe Mazzini that they were created. You see, Giuseppe Mazzini was the head of the Carbonari family at the time, one of the most powerful of all the families of Italy during that day and age. And what he did was gather together some of the most powerful of all families, Italian families, and created what we now call the Mafia. What had happened during the La Cosa Nostra's war was the Mafia was actually stepping on the Illuminati's drug territory. Well, the Illuminati wasn't about to tolerate that. They created the Mafia. They were going to teach them the lesson they'll never forget. And they took key members of each of the Mafia families and had them executed as a warning to the next person who would dare take one toe out of line. Once that happened, it stopped just as suddenly as it had started. So it doesn't matter what occult organization you are or what mystic society you belong to, you will toe the mark, or the Illuminati will let you know just how big of a mistake you just made.
Yeah, no, so since it really had its origin with a Jesuit, are you saying the Illuminati is founded and run ultimately by the Catholic Church? Or?
No, it did not start with the Jesuits. Weishaupt himself was a defrocked Jesuit, but he did not fashion it after the Jesuit. He was an expert in every single occult school in his day and age. This is why, to this very day, he had infiltrated the Masons, the Rosicrucians, because they had occult ties. And if you check any major occult book, you will find that they identify the Masons as another occult society.
Yeah.
It's the old axiom, it takes one to know one. And in this case, it's very true, because by the time General Albert Pike, who was given his position as the head of the southern jurisdiction of all Masonry by Giuseppe Mazzini now, Pike had taken all of the Masonic rituals and rewritten them to where they reflected the entire belief system and occult practices that you can find in the Order of the Illuminati. His classic 861-page book known as Morals and Dogmas. You read through that, you will know exactly what I am talking about. It is one famous Masonic writer had explained. Albert Pike found masonry in a log cabin and put it into a stone temple. That's how much of a radical change and improvement, as far as the Masons are concerned, he had done.
We got about a minute and a half left before we go to break, but I wanted to get your thoughts on the, it's flying by already. I wanted to get your thoughts on, I've heard that it's not really attributed to Albert Pike. I've heard that it is, but supposedly there was a document written that outlined 3 world wars sometime back in the 1800s. Is that true?
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm very familiar with that document. It was, among other things, part of the correspondence between Albert Pike and Giuseppe Mazzini. They were in constant communique while Albert Pike was fixing, shall we say, a broken society, a.k.a. the Masons. But we can get into that once we're back from the break, because this is going to take a little explaining.
Yeah, okay, so you are confirming then that this document was in fact attributed to Albert.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. There are witnesses who saw it in the Wittenberg Library.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because, I mean, you see it on the internet, people pass it around, then there's always the debunkers out there saying, no, it's not, there's a fraud and blah, blah, blah. And I was always like, well, even if it is a fraud, it was written prior to World War I, and World War I and II played out exactly to the script. So whoever wrote it seemed to have known something.
Exactly. But yeah, we'll get into that if you want. Not a problem.
Okay. Well, hold that thought, and we'll talk about it when we come back from the break. And we're back on the Revolutionary Radio Project. I am your host, Rob Skiba, and tonight we're talking with Doc Marquis. And Doc, right before the break, we were talking about Albert Pike and this apparently a script of some sort, or a letter, or a document that outlined 3 world wars. Tell us about that.
Well, of course, the one thing I will tell everyone is that there's going to be a lot of dissenters out there, of course, mainly Masons, who say this doesn't exist and all this. And yet something, if it doesn't exist, very strange is going on. Because, you see, as I stated before, Mazzini, the second head of the Illuminati, and Albert Pike was in constant communication. Now, back in August 15th of 1871, one of the letters Pike had sent to Mazzini described a 3 world wars, if you would, that would finally bring the world under, rulership of the Illuminati. Now, the First World War, and tell me if this isn't familiar. Now, we have to remember, this particular letter that Pike had written to Mazzini, let me see, World War started 1914 and lasted through 1918, so this letter is 43 years old. He wrote, the First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. As far as my history book tells me, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I was going to say, sounds like it played out just to write exactly according to the script.
Right, and of course, to overthrow the Tsar of Russia and to instill communism. Well, that was the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, when Tsar Nicholas II and his family were eventually arrested and executed. And ever since that time, there's been no more czars in Russia, and communism has taken over. Now, communism is just a synonym for Illuminism. And in my presentations, and as a matter of fact, in particular, in DVD 14 and DVD 13 in my series, I will show you that you can actually trace communism straight back to the Illuminati belief system. It is so easy, so simple to do, yet most people don't see this. But there's no doubt of it. Communism is just a synonym for Illuminism. Now, the Second World War, according to the letter stated, the Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. Fascism, I wonder how that comes into play. Anyways, this war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel and Palestine. Mm-hmm. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, here's my thoughts right now. I'm like, okay. I mean, this is written, what you said, 1871?
Yes.
Okay, so this is written prior to the 20th century. And yet real early in the 20th century, we get World War I, then we get a little break, then we get World War II, and everything that they said they wanted to accomplish with these world wars did in fact happen. So that tells me that, okay, not only is there a script, but there are people within high levels of government, positions of high level of government in nations around the world that have to be part of this because, I mean, when you look at all the players that were involved in these world wars, I mean, they called it World War for a reason, they all have to be in on it. I mean, if they're following the script, right?
Someone's following the game plans to the letters, and unless you and I have misunderstood what happened during World War I and World War II, something's going on here then.
Well, that's what it seems like. Remember, I mean, so then in that case, if that's true, then we don't really have, there aren't really enemies. It's like the World Wrestling Federation. I mean, when I was a kid, you know, the World Wrestling Federation was like huge. All my friends were watching it. You know, we watched it, and they would come through my little town of Chicopee, Massachusetts. There was a place called the Hukilau, and it was a Polynesian restaurant. And when the World Wrestling Federation would come to town, they would go to the Springfield Civic Center, and I mean, they had what you were told and taught and programmed to think of these enemies. I mean, you know, whoever the wrestlers were, you knew they hated each other. They were like, you know, arch enemies, and they fought it out, and, you know, it's all, you know, this big stage show. But then afterwards, all the wrestlers would go to the Hukilau, and if we happened to be there when the wrestlers were there, you would see these guys who were like, supposedly like the worst of enemies, you know, with their arms around each other. Man, that was great when you cracked that chair over my head, and, you know, whatever. You know, they were like the best of buddies. So, I mean, is that basically what's going on the world stage?
Basically, yeah. Oh, and by the way, I called wrestling the man's soap opera.
Well, that's what it was. Absolutely, that's exactly what it was. They had all the drama, you know.
And you're right. You see, to the Illuminati, all of this is a giant chess game.
Yeah.
They always, whatever they do, they begin it on a small level, and they will make certain moves to where if these things come out, let's say 90% or maybe 100% the way they wanted to, then they're going to bring it up to a larger scale. But when we think about this, as you stated, 43 years before World War I happened, a plan had already been written out. With Adolf Hitler, that would have been 67 years because his first move to war was in 1938. So something is going on here, and I don't care what people try to say, whether they say this is real or not. The one inescapable fact is that with these letters, whether people want to say they're genuine or not, they are spot on. Mm-hmm. Someone is following a definitive script. Now, when we look at the Third World War, this is exactly what's going on. It says, the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between, between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. Mm-hmm. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, which we know as the State of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. And they'll have to. You see, remember, between all these nations, they have all these different treaties and agreements, don't they, Rod? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, it continues. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horrors will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Mm-hmm. Now, as I stated, I've got this document, a copy of this in DVD 4, which is called Magic, Mysticism, and Masonry, and in DVD 13, Dictators of the Illuminati. And I defy anyone to look at that document and tell me this is not exactly what's going on right now.
Where can people get those DVDs?
Oh, just go to my website, put in the usual www dot in the address bar, and the rest of this is going to be one long word, all lowercase, no apostrophes. Just type in, It's a God Thing Productions 777.com. Now that's It's a God Thing Productions 777.com. Now, if you can't remember that, ladies and gentlemen, just send me an email, Doc Marquis 777@yahoo.com. Very easy. Just send me a letter, and I'll send you to the link. Or if you want, just call me at 402-228-9476. Now, that's 402-228-9476, or look me up on Facebook.
Excellent. So, okay, now, I know this is probably going to be controversial. These days I can't help it. It's like I open my mouth and it's going to be controversial. But
well, Bob, every one of us, and all us speak is, at all these conventions, we blame you for everything. You know that by now.
It is true. I've become the punching bag. Well, they say you take the most flack.
Now, those of us who know you, love you, and respect your work.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so from what you're telling me, what I've heard in this last half hour or so is there is a script, and it's not a godly script. It's a script written by a bunch of Luciferian Illuminists that called for the creation of a state calling itself Israel, founded and funded by Rothschild money, exactly according to that script. And yet Christians want to say, hey, we've got to support this. And now let me just say, I support the people who come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the people of Israel. But geopolitical Zionism, I don't support.
Well, no, I don't blame you, because you see, it's the same thing with America. Now, don't get me wrong when I say this. I personally will always support the spirit of Americana, but I think what's going on in America is beyond anything I've ever seen as far as corruption goes.
I agree.
I have lived quite a long time. I mean, I'm a child of the 50s, for goodness sakes. And I remember there was a time when people would vote in a president according to the quality of the character he possessed. Nowadays, people have no idea how presidents are really given to power, and we look at the one that's presently in the White House. My goodness, folks, if you can't tell that there's a high degree of corruption going on, lies, bribery, thievery, then you are living with your head in the sand. And it's the same thing going on with Israel. You know, it's an interesting fact here. Now, we know, according to the scriptures, there's going to come a time when the third temple is going to be built on the Temple Mount, and this person identified in the scriptures as the coming Antichrist will sit on the throne and proclaim himself to be God, correct?
Yeah, that's what it says.
In a nutshell.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Who owns the Temple Mount?
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, the Rothschild family owns the Temple Mount.
Mm-hmm.
They bought the Temple Mount, I believe it was exactly 1838. If not, it was the year before. You see, there was a number sent by these very well-known rabbis asking, I believe it was Jacob Rothschild back then, to buy the Temple Mount. You see, the idea behind this was if they could buy the Temple Mount, then they could erect the third temple, do all the necessary sacrificing, call upon God, and they would send their deliverer, the Messiah. Remember, according to Jewish belief, they don't believe the Messiah has come yet.
Right.
But you and I both know Jesus Christ has come and left, but is still here. Nevertheless, this was the purpose. The rabbis sent those letters to the Rothschilds. However, the Rothschilds had their own plans. They bought the Temple Mount, thousands of acres around it, not too far down the road at, what is that place? Richelieu, a city they literally built from the ground up. All this is owned by the Rothschilds, so when it's time, since they own the Temple Mount, they're going to have no problem guaranteeing the third temple will be rebuilt, and that their person, known as the Antichrist, in the Illuminati, he's known as the king of the despots. He is not referred to as the Antichrist. That's a Christian term. In the Illuminati, they call him the king of the despots. They will take the king of the despots and proclaim him to be the God of the world.
Yeah, I mean, but this is all following their script. They have set themselves up to be essentially the Messiah. I mean, if you look at Scripture, this is what really got me tripped up a few years ago. Was I finally started looking into things for myself. I know it's a crazy thought, but I started, just reading the Bible for myself and saying, okay, all the stuff that I've been taught regarding Israel in 1948, it doesn't fit. I mean, everybody says, can a nation be born in a day? Sure, May 14th, 1948, except for Isaiah 66:8, which they're quoting, is in a millennial reign context, and verse 12, 4 verses later, say, peace will flow like a river from that place. They've had anything but peace since 1948. So I'm like, well, wait a minute. So then I'm looking at Ezekiel 37, and I'm going through Ezekiel 37 line by line. I'm like, did that happen? No. Did that happen? No. Did that happen? No. I went through all the scriptures I could find regarding the reestablishment of Israel as a nation under God, and none of them fit 1948. So I began to think, well, I mean, it looks to me like the script that they're following is not the Bible, it's Albert Pike.
Well, it is Pike's idea and Mazzini's idea. Between them, this is what was finally formulated. And when it was, Pike sent this letter to Mazzini to explain, you know, how this thing must come about. I mean, if anyone doubts Pike's involvement in this Luciferian belief, let me read you another letter here. It was from Albert Pike to Giuseppe Mazzini. This one's dated July 14th, 1889. This is Pike now. That which we say to the crowd is, we worship a God, but it is the God one adores without superstition. To you, sovereign grand instructed generals, now that's a 33rd degree Mason, that's the highest in the Scottish Rite system, we say this, you may repeat it to the brethren of the 32nd, 31st, and 30th degrees. The Masonic religion should be, by all of the initiates of the high degrees, maintained in the purity of the Luciferian Doctrine. Mm-hmm. Now, in Morals and Dogmas, on page 321, he said the following, Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning, is it he who bears the light and with its splendors intolerable blinds feeble, sensual, or selfish souls? Doubt it not. You see, according to the Masonic teaching, Lucifer is the angel of light. I mean, you know, not the angel of darkness who became, from Lucifer became Satan. No, Lucifer is still the angel of light. He is the God of light in Masonry.
And that's a good point too. There seems to be a big difference between a Luciferian and a Satanist. Would you agree?
Oh yes. You see, Satanists. Now, bear with me just a little bit here, because there's a number of different types of Satanists. There are those Satanists who say, "Yeah, we're worshiping Satan, hail Satan." Then there are those Satanists who believe that Satan is an idea, a concept. They don't believe in a personage. Then there are those Satanists who don't believe in Satan, but they call them Satanists. I know, a strange one there. Then, of course, there are different levels of involvement, including what I call the satanic wannabes and so on and so forth. But in either case, that's an acknowledgement of the Satan as you will find in the Holy Bible. With Luciferian witchcraft or people in the Illuminati, they acknowledge Lucifer, but they don't worship Satan. They think Satan is a Christian boogeyman that was created just to keep the little toddlers in line. How many times did parents say, if you don't behave, Satan or some demon will come and get you? Let me explain this in a nutshell. This will clear it up for you. In the Illuminati, it is taught to this very day that in the beginning, Lucifer was equal to God in all things. However, as the millenniums rolled by, it was God who became jealous of Lucifer's equality and had his angels throw Lucifer and his angels out of heaven. Right now, the Illuminati are convinced that they are summoning up enough of the force to where at the Battle of Armageddon, they're going to kill God and the Holy Spirit and put Lucifer on the throne where they feel he rightfully belongs. And right now, Christ is supposed to be chained to a huge boulder in hell because he betrayed the cause.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
that's how they see it.
So you have these world leaders who, on the surface, I mean, they seem like philanthropists. They seem like decent people, aside from their occult rituals they probably do in secret. But out in front, they look like good, honorable, moral people for the most part. Whereas you have the Anton LaVeys or the Aleister Crowleys or some of these other guys who are, overt, into, sexual occult rituals and, debauchery and, they're like, hey, we're Satanists. We love Satan. And we serve him. Is that your observation? I mean, I'm just kind of looking at, you've been in sort of these circles, so.
That's a perfect description, Rob. And in the Bible, it warns us of sheep that are in wolf clothing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it's saying. Those so-called sheep, those are really wolves. They're just wearing sheep clothing. That's all they really are.
See, this is what
drives me. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, this drives me crazy because we have presidents that will play the Christian card. They know our Christianese quite well, but Jesus said we will know them by their fruits, not their campaign speeches. And when you look into their fruits and the organizations, Skull and Bones and whatnot that they're involved with, they are polite Luciferians, but they are not Christians. They may know our lingo, but they're fools.
Well, they're anything but polite if you've ever seen what they do behind the scenes. I can tell you that much.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. It's always out of the public eye, but in the public eye, they're like the coolest, nicest, sweetest, whatever. But
oh, please, are we going to say that about Hillary Clinton?
No, I'm not talking about Clinton, but there are other families that, like here in Texas, without mentioning any names, certain president personalities that come from Texas that people love, and have come and speak as.
Are you beating around the bush by any chance?
I might be, but speaking about beating around the bush, what do you think they do over there in the Bohemian Grove?
Oh, I could tell you stories about that. Well, as a matter of fact, wait a second. I did. It's DVD 11. It's a DVD 11 or 12. I don't remember. It's called Dark Rites and Rituals at the Bohemian Grove. Wait till you see the evidence I've got in that one. Now, the Bohemian Grove is what I call the Illuminati summer camp.
Yeah.
Because you will see the highest-ranking members of the Illuminati meet for 2 weeks on the average every summer at the Bohemian Grove, which, that is 1,200 acres of California red trees, where they are actually deciding the fate of countries around the world. There is, as a matter of fact, and wait till you see the photos and evidence I've got in that. There's the Manhattan Project, for instance, when they built the first atomic bomb and what they were going to do with it. Yeah. That was all created at the Bohemian Grove. The Star Wars Initiative under Ronald Reagan, that was created at the Bohemian Grove. As a matter of fact, speaking of Ronald Reagan, do you know...
Wait, hold that thought. We're about ready to go to break. So when we come back from the break, we'll pick it up with Ronald Reagan, Star Wars, and the Bohemian Grove.
You got it.
You're listening to the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
And we're back on the Revolutionary Radio Project. I am your host, Rob Skiba, and tonight we're talking with my friend Doc Marquis. And right before the break, as we were beating around the bush, we ended up in Bohemian Grove and started talking about Ronald Reagan and Star Wars. Care to pick up where you left off there?
Yeah, before I do, let me tell you something funny that just happened. I accidentally left my email page open, and I've got a letter here from John Gableson. John Gableson, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be doing his convention. That's called, help me again here,
Back to the Future Conference.
Back to the Future Conference, ladies and gentlemen. He writes a letter that says, "Go get him, Doc."
Yeah.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me just say this. For those of you who live in the Austin area or Leander, Rob and I were both going to be speaking at this wonderful conference that John Gableson's putting on. Now, for those of you who want to attend or who are interested, please speak to John Gableson. Now, his contact phone number is 512-686-1377. Now, that's 512-686-1377. Now, digressing back to Ronald and Richard Nixon. See, when Richard Nixon was running for the presidency, he was a Republican, if you remember, and so was Ronald Reagan. Mm-hmm. Now, Reagan could have easily beaten Nixon, in my opinion. However, what had happened when Reagan found out at the Bohemian Grove that Nixon was also being considered, and I do mean considered, for the presidency, because the members there were doing it. Remember, these are people in the Illuminati now. Reagan basically asked Richard Nixon to go have a walk with him, and they walked down, one of the many paths, and found a bench and sat under this old red oak tree. And Reagan basically told him, if you can make it to, what is that, the GOP convention? He says, if you garner enough votes to make it today, he says, I will politely step out because I will not go up against a fellow boho. Now, a boho is a person who is a member of the Bohemian Grove. It's just an abbreviation, boho, Bohemian Grove. And that's exactly what happened. Nixon made it to the primaries and all this, so Ronald Reagan, he politely stepped out. He said he would not go up against a fellow boho, and he didn't. But, of course, from 1980 through 88, Ronald Reagan was given the presidency anyway.
Yeah, so that's an interesting time period because that'll play nicely into a segue here to another subject that I want to get into. I could spend all night talking about Bohemian Grove, but in 1982, a set of cards came out called the Illuminati game cards. What can you tell us?
Illuminati New World Order playing cards, yes.
The playing cards. What can you tell us about those?
Well, the playing cards themselves was created, the first printing, the very first set, was created back in 1982. Now, there are 7 different decks in the entire Illuminati card series, okay? And it was printed from 1982 through 1995, which is a 13-year printing. Trust me, it was no accident. It was 13 years. Now, these cards on the surface was presented in a way that this was just another new card-playing game like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon or Magic the Gathering, things along that ilk. However, what most people didn't realize was that there were plans of the Order of the Illuminati in those cards themselves. These are not prophecies. I want you to understand carefully. These are not prophecies, just well laid out, well manicured plans that the Illuminati were going to execute X amount of years down the road. These cards were printed solely for the purpose of all of their members throughout the world to know what their future plans were, and it was done in a way that everyone else thought that this was just another card game. One quick example, excuse me, and I believe you know the one I'm going to, would be how the Illuminati cards not predicted, but showed what was going to happen at 9/11. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of particular cards that, well, first of all, we find out, excuse me, when we look at the events of 9/11, we know that the Twin Towers or the Trade Towers were hit by airplanes and destroyed. We know that the Pentagon was supposedly hit or destroyed or something that they can't explain to this very day. I mean, they try to tell me that it was an airplane that crashed into, the Pentagon. Rob, I have friends in various news outlets, not just here in America, but around the world. And the ones who were there reporting on the events of 9/11, they all told me. Now, they weren't speaking to each other at the time. I mean, this was one called me up, another from another station called me, and one by one, they all told me that there was absolute no plane wreckage. Mm-hmm. Now, if there was, whatever happened to the black box? Mm-hmm. I mean, and we know that happened. As far as the Pentagon, it was hit. We also found out as, the day went on, and I've got all the footage from that very day. I was popping in one tape out of another, just recording everything, that the White House and the Capitol were supposed to be hit, but they were emptied out, but fortunately they weren't hit, and that one of the first people we blamed was Saddam Hussein. Mm-hmm. Osama bin Laden, eventually we found out was the culprit behind all of it. But one of the first people that was being blamed, and again, folks, check all the old tapes. People will point this thing at Saddam Hussein and everything. Now, when we go to the Illuminati deck, now the very first series of cards, the very first original deck of Illuminati Playing Cards was printed in 1982. It wouldn't be till 19 years later that the cards, what they told, would come about. There was a particular Illuminati Playing Cards. Now, I believe you can find most of these online, ladies and gentlemen. So, or if you want, go to my website. I just remembered, if you go to my website, there is a section on the taskbar to the left. As soon as the front page opens, the taskbar is blue. I believe it's either on the bottom or second from the bottom. There's a section called the Illuminati Playing Cards. Now, there are two cards, and you'll find all this in that section I just said, ladies and gentlemen. But for those of you who may not have a computer or can't get to my website, look this up online. You might be able to find these cards because there are two cards in particular. One is called Terrorist Nuke. The other is called the Pentagon. Now, when you look at the Terrorist Nuke card, it shows Building 1, I believe it was, of the Trade Towers. That was, you see a big explosion and everything. You see the building look like it's rocking out of position. And when you compare that to where the plane struck the first tower, it's the exact spot where the plane would have hit. Mm-hmm. And that's on the Terrorist Nuke playing card. Now, there was another card, as it says, the Pentagon card. Well, it shows something, a big explosion at the Pentagon, but it doesn't show a plane hitting it or anything. You're left to guess what happened. And to this very day, ladies and gentlemen, there is no plane wreckage or anything. As a matter of fact, if you compare the wingspan of a 747 to the hole that was supposedly created by a plane, there's no way a 747 would have created a small hole like that. Mm-hmm. It would have created something more than 100 feet across.
Yeah, I remember watching it live when it was happening before the roof collapsed, when it was just the hole. And I was like, they're telling me a plane hit that, but there's just a tiny little hole that the fuselage would barely fit into. Where are the wing damage marks? Where are the engines? I remember watching it live going, that's not right. And then I remember watching the towers fall at free fall speed, and they're telling me it's the result of jet fuel. Now, I was in the military. Yeah, I was in the military for 8 years. 6 of those years was a helicopter pilot. And one time I got doused in jet fuel. And it was in the wintertime, and I was terrified because it has it'll go up with static electricity. I'm wearing a flight suit, so I'm like terrified that I might, rub something wrong and set off a static spark and go up in flames. So I'm like walking like Gumby with my arms out and my legs out across the flight line to get into the hangar because I was terrified that I could go up in flames at any second. Because I knew it had a quick flash point, it burns fast, it burns hot. So that means when the planes hit that building, the jet fuel was burned off in seconds. That big burst of flame that went up, that was it. After that, it was cold burning fires with the dark smoke indicating an oxygen-starved environment. And yet these buildings come down at free fall. And I'm watching all these things on the day going, that can't happen, that can't happen, that can't happen. And yet, like everybody else, after a day of trauma, mind control.
Yeah, jet fuel does not burn hot enough to melt steel.
Correct.
It doesn't. And when we look at the 3 buildings that fell, they fell exactly as you would expect from a controlled detonation.
Yeah.
That's what was interesting about it. Ladies and gentlemen, what are the odds of 3 buildings falling in such a way that they do not lean and fall over and take X amount of other buildings down with them?
Right.
The odds are too astronomical to even calculate. And yet, this is what we were told. And interesting, Rob, excuse me. In my library, I have the film from Great Britain that showed a reporter was talking about how Building 7 had fallen. And right behind her, you could see Building 7 was still standing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does this tell us? And then I've got also a footage from a camera that no one was looking at least around the Pentagon area because it was off the Pentagon grounds. It shows what appears to be a Scud missile. Now, it's either a Scud missile or a drone, but I'm convinced it's a Scud missile. I was in the military like you was. And this thing comes down at a perfect altitude, and you can see it level off and hit the Pentagon dead on, exactly where the explosion happened. Yeah. But getting back to the cards, we know also that, fortunately, the White House and the Capitol was not hit. Now, if you look up the martial law playing card, that it will show you exactly what happened on 9/11. The White House was not touched, and you can see what appears to be the National Guard or some guard around, the fence, just like it was shown on television. And you also, if you look at the second card, it's called Plague of Demons. Yeah. You will find that the Capitol was also unscathed. And the fifth card you want to look in this story, you can, again, look it up online, I think. Look for the Saddam Hussein card. Saddam is Saddam, Hussein, Hussein. Saddam Hussein. I think if you put in the Illuminati New World Order playing cards, you want to put in, what does it say on the box again? Everything is one, I think is what it says. You want to look for that deck. It has, that's it. One with everything just in case. It's the original first edition of the cards. And I'm going to warn you, for anyone who might try to get these cards or anything, I have seen on eBay. Now, you have to remember, these cards are no longer in print, not the original. I mean, the original was printed, 33 years ago now. I've seen them sell between $3,000 to $5,000. I don't have that kind of money, Rob. I'm just glad I've got all the cards, shortly, when I saw them first being put out. But you look at those 5 cards, as I explained, ladies and gentlemen, the first one being terrorist nuke, then the Pentagon, martial law, plague of demons, and then Saddam Hussein. You will find the whole of those events, as shown on the television, had already been on the Illuminati cards 19 years before the fact.
Yeah, and it's still happening. There's the one that says Al-Amarja, A-L, and then the second word A-M-A-R-J-A. And it looks just like the Aurora Theater where the shooting took place there, the Denver Cinema in 2012. It's not just 9/11 is obviously the biggest one, but it seems like there's a whole lot of other ones.
It's one of them.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Let's look at the famous BP oil spill.
Yeah.
It was that was April 20th, 2010. The British petroleum ship Deep Horizon suddenly exploded in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, of course, that sent millions upon millions of gallons of, crude oil into the water, causing an ecological nightmare. Now, this suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Yet, and I will get to the Illuminati cards on this. You see, the Illuminati will always mark their territory. There's no doubt about it. When we look at what had happened here at the BP oil spill, there was a particular movie that had actually predicted this was going to happen. And I mean, aside from the Illuminati playing cards now.
Yeah, no.
Did you by any chance, Ron, see the movie called Knowing?
Yeah, I remember the scene.
Right. Now, in the movie Knowing, ladies and gentlemen, a young boy is given a sheet of paper that has a series of numbers written on the front and back of it. Now, these numbers, as the movie goes on, you will find out that they are the actual dates and coordinates, longitude and latitude of where past historical disaster had happened. Plus, this same sheet of paper also contains information of disastrous events that still hadn't happened yet. Now, in the particular scene Rob was mentioning, Nicolas Cage, who's the star of this movie, comes in from working on one of these disasters, and he looks at the clock. It's exactly 11:39 p.m. and he turns on the television. And as he watched the television, the news comes on, and suddenly one of the newspaper reporters announcing that there was an oil rig that had just exploded in the Gulf of Mexico. He looks at the clock again. It is now midnight. It's 12 o'clock. It's the next day. He looks down at the piece of paper that he's finally figured out is, have these prophetical dates. He looks down at it. Not only is it, the correct longitude and latitude, but what's even more interesting, in the center of the paper, in that scene, you will see 666. Now, once I saw that, I knew this event was going to happen because, as I stated before, the Illuminati will always mark their territory. So sure enough, and this is exactly to the day now, ladies and gentlemen, 13 months later, the BP oil spill had happened. And according to the Illuminati playing cards, it was going to happen because there's a particular card known as multinational oil companies. It shows the Earth with a gigantic oil rig standing on top of it, and oil is spewing out in the form of a pyramid. You look where the Gulf of Mexico is on the earth, and you can see that it's covered in oil. Now, do you remember, Ron, when they were showing this oil disaster, they were constantly showing this particular bird. It looked like a duck. I wasn't certain. Covered in that sludge and everything. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Now, if you look at the Illuminati playing card called Oil Spill, you will see that exact same bird covered in that same sludge, swimming in that sludge-covered water, just as you saw on the telly.
Yeah. So, okay, bringing it up a little more closer to our time period now, there are a lot of doom and gloom people out there on Facebook and elsewhere suggesting that this September may...
September 15th.
Well, 15th, 23rd. I mean, I've heard a lot. And, you know, it's interesting. We didn't really pay attention to this stuff before 9/11, but after 9/11, a lot of people, when they started really doing their research on it, realized that there were a lot of memes and movies leading up to 9/11, where clocks were set at 9/11 like crazy. I think it was Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, I think, or Dan Aykroyd, somebody, I don't remember who it was, but anyway, they walk by the World Trade Centers, they walk into, I think it was one of the World Trade Centers, and the clock was set to 9/11. There's all these 9/11 signs in The Simpsons and all kinds of shows before 9/11. Now, people are coming out showing videos ahead of time that seem to indicate September 23rd, 2015, and what I keep hearing a lot of reports on is in regard to a meteor or an asteroid possibly hitting the Earth sometime in mid to late September. Now, there is a card in the Illuminati card deck and the playing cards that says meteor strike. And there was a woman by the name of Dr. Carolyn Rawson who had supposedly been a secretary or something for Werner von Braun in the latter years of his life. And according to her, he told her that first, there would be a need to create space-based weapons. We talked about Star Wars being conceived in Bohemian Grove, and the Russians would be the reason for that. We're going to be at war with the Russians, and we're going to have to build space-based defenses. And then they said after that, it'll be third world countries, and there'll be, terrorism will be the issue. And then they said after that, it'll be asteroids, and then after that, it'll be aliens. So, and he was laughing about it, but at the same time saying, you got to do whatever you can to stop this because it's all a fraud. It's all a scam. So with that being said, do you think there's any truth to all the stuff that's been going around the internet? Do you think they might be up to something? And what do you think of that card?
Okay. Well, first of all, when I consider the events that's supposed to happen on September 15th, especially, that's supposed to involve Jade Helm 15.
Right.
And some say that September 23rd. Now, others are claiming that the rapture are going to hit in either September or October, Right. In other words, we're looking at another December 21st, 2012.
Right.
Chicken Little, the sky's falling. And some are already using, and I'll be writing an article on this for News with Views, going to the Bible codes and saying, aha, it's predicted, not September 15th, aha. Well, you know what? The Bible code said December 21st, 2012 also. Now, the Bible codes are accurate if you look towards the history, but you can't use it to divine the future because that's called divination, and God forbid the practice of divination. So if you're going to try to use the Bible code, ladies and gentlemen, give it up now. Anyways, there is absolutely no way, according to the timetables of the Illuminati that I still have memorized to this very day, that anything is going to happen on that date. You see, some people, and let me show you how wild and crazy this is getting. Now, I've been watching, and this one pastor's been watching with me also. We've been watching the events of what's been leading to Jade Helm 15 for over a year and a half now. It's almost 2 years. But we've been watching these vehicles and what they've been carrying very carefully from one base to another to another. And I've got the footage that will even show these, a number of these military transports, and this is at the dead of night when everyone would be sleeping. We're transporting, these big vehicles and other things from New Mexico to California.
Okay, hold that thought. Going to right now, and come back. We'll talk about Jade Helm. And we're back on the Revolutionary Radio Project. I am your host, Rob Skiba, for this final half-hour segment. And we're talking with my friend Doc Marquis. And right before the break, Doc, you were talking about the various trucks and equipment and things that may be linked to Jade Helm 15.
Right. Now, as I said before, me and that one pastor, we've been keeping a very close eye on what's been going on with Jade Helm for over a year and a half, almost 2 years now. Now, there was a photo that just recently came up, I think it was about 4 or 5 days ago, that shows these military trucks with huge rolls of barbed wire. The razor type that has the razors
sure.
On both sides of the wire, and you can just roll it out, and heaven help you if you get caught on it.
Yeah.
Well, these trucks have all these rolls and rolls and rolls on it. And the person's conclusion was, aha, look, I've got proof that says they're going to take all this wire and they're going to separate the states. They're going to begin it, somewhere in Texas and go all around the border of Texas, all the way up to the border of California and separate it from the United States of America. You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. First of all, they don't have enough of rolls. And I was in the military like yourself. I served at the end of the Vietnamese conflict. And there's no way those rolls that I saw could cordon off one state, let alone all those states down there in the South. Yeah. That's insane.
Texas is huge. I can't see Texans. There is a motto down here: don't mess with Texas.
Don't mess with Texas. I know. I lived in Texas for 10 years myself. And let's say they cordoned off everything with the barbed wire, right? Which is more than vastly more than what they were carrying. People wouldn't stand for it. They'd cut it and get rid of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just common sense, folks. Now, with what were we saying about that
we're
disaster,
talking about
September 15th. Yeah. Now, first of all, again, DVD 7 and 8 is where I covered, among other things, the death and destruction of planet Earth, again, December 21st, 2012. Remember, there was supposed to be a meteor that was supposed to strike us. That was one of it. Ladies and gentlemen, again, please, why don't we use some common sense here instead of doing the paparazzi paper stand thing? I can easily say, and I did, I explained to people, folks, there are telescopes that is watching space right now. We couldn't miss something that big heading towards us. People started jumping up and saying, aha, But NASA won't tell us it's a conspiracy. Folks, if anyone knows what a conspiracy is, trust me, it's going to be me. What happens, excuse me, what would we do if, we just use, let's just say, amateur astronomers with their own telescopes? They could see if anything's heading right for us, ladies and gentlemen. With December 21st, 2012, supposedly planet Nibiru was supposed to come close enough to the Earth where cosmic cataclysms would happen. If you go by the ancient text, according to Zechariah Sitchin, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, don't believe anything when he wrote on the Sumerian tablets. He was not qualified to translate the tablets. But according to Zechariah Sitchin's translation, planet Nibiru would swing by us, and there'd be a cosmic cataclysm exactly on December 21st, 2012. Now, Nibiru was supposed to be twice the size of the planet Jupiter. Now, using any sort of amateur telescope, there is no way possible you're going to miss something twice the size of Jupiter hurtling right at you.
Right.
I mean, think about this. It's twice the size of Jupiter, and we're not going to see it? Anyways, so here we have another case where, ladies and gentlemen, there's too many telescopes and people who know what they're doing with these telescopes who couldn't miss it. However, there is something possible. And I explained this on DVD 7 and 8. And those are called, what those are called again? The Illuminati Plans for 2012 and Beyond. There is a section where I get into this. Now, there is an outside possibility. And mind you, this is remote. I believe you should be able to find this on the net. Look for, I believe it's called Asteroid Apophis. Apophis. I believe that's how, if I remember, you spell Apophis. It was one of the ancient Egyptian gods, Apophis. Well, anyways, there was an asteroid out there that is supposed to swing by the planet Earth. I believe it's around, I want to say 2028.
Mm-hmm.
But check me, ladies and gentlemen. I could be wrong my date.
2029.
But
April
accordingly, is it 2029?
Yeah, April 13th.
Okay. Apophis is supposed to come close enough to the Earth to where if it hits this particular spot in the Earth's atmosphere, it will bounce away in such an angle that it will swing around, come back a year later, and will be able to strike the Earth dead on. But hitting that one part of the Earth's outer atmosphere, the odds are greatly against us. I believe it was at one point when they first measured this possible event, I believe the odds were at 10%. I think after the recalculation, it's supposed to be down to something so negligible. I mean, maybe less than 3%.
Yeah, 2.7 is what NASA's website says.
Yeah, the odds are so against it, ladies and gentlemen, because that's almost like trying to take a needle, thread it with a thread, and get it right on the first shot. I can barely see the needle even with my glasses on, but the odds are so far against it, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm not going to lie to you about it. I've got the information, as it says, on DVD 7 and 8, but use that, what we discussed about December 21st and Nibiru, apply it to this comet that's supposedly going to hit us September 15th. You know, this is going to be the next December 21st, 2012. And just remember, ladies and gentlemen, we've got amateur astronomers out there with good equipment. Their telescopes can see if this is coming or not. If NASA isn't going to tell us, I guarantee you everyone else around the world is going to tell you with their telescope and says, yes, this is really going to hit us.
Yeah.
Let's use common sense.
So I take it that you're not at all concerned about this September.
No, because remember, we've got many options here. Jade Helm is going to create martial law, but if what they're saying about this asteroid is true, we've got nothing to worry about because the Earth is going to be destroyed by the asteroid. So who cares about September 15th and, Jade Helm? Or, let's not forget, the rapture could hit. Well, according to my Bible, there's not supposed to be an asteroid that hits the Earth and throws us all into the atmosphere in a quasi-rapture way.
Right. Okay, so...
my understanding is the Lord is going to take us off the face of the Earth.
Right. Well, okay, though, but would you say then that the Illuminati playing cards are based on stuff that somebody knows? Information that they're privy to, that they're aware of, and or plan to execute? Would that be your take?
The latter. They are planning to execute. You see, there are some plans of the Illuminati that take up to 100 years to complete, but they don't care. You see, according to the belief system of the Illuminati, they don't believe in heaven or hell. They believe you're going to be put on the wheel of life when you die. You're going to end up in Somerset. And while you're in the holding pattern, eventually you will leave there, get back on the wheel of life, and come back again to the process of reincarnation to continue the plans. That's why it doesn't matter to them how long these plans are. They believe in reincarnation. And one of the most recent plans that they had developed, and it took 75 years for them to see through from beginning to end, was to cover up the rapture. Rob, I will tell you right now, beyond any fear of contradiction, if the rapture were to hit in the next split second, the Illuminati can cover it up, and they will get away with it. There is absolutely no doubt whatsoever. They can do it.
Okay, there's a couple of cards that I want to talk about. We only got like 20 minutes left here. One of them is the Illuminati playing card showing the moon landing is a Hollywood stage set. NASA's a fraud.
Right.
What's your take on that?
Well, the thing is, when I first saw those cards in particular, I wasn't surprised because this was part of the controversies the Illuminati had already planned on causing. You see, going by what the Illuminati, everything I learned of the Illuminati, excuse me, they needed to land someone on the moon, and you have to understand, this was 1969. The Illuminati, literally speaking, lived by numerology, gematria, and astrology. Nothing is finalized or formulated until those are in agreement. Once that happens, then they set the exact dates according to those practices. The reason it was 1969 was because that was the year of Satan, going by occult theocracy. But of course, you're not going to hear that name Satan. They said it was the year of Lucifer. But, from our perspective, it would be Satan. And it had to be the moon of all places. Now, we know that right now there's stories where if the Lord doesn't tarry, I believe it's within the next 15 years that they're going to land people on the moon. On Mars, correct?
That's what they're trying to push on us anyway.
Right. Now, it wasn't chosen, that of all places, just for the fun of it. This has another occult reason to it. This is because Mars is the god of war, according to ancient legends. And this is going to coincide with what they're planning between 2028 through 2030. According to the timelines, at that point between 2028 and 2030, they will have everything in their back pockets, which means at any time, given their leisure, whenever they want, they can now, at that point, take over and set up the New World Order. When we get back to the lunar landing, let me just think for a second.
Well, let's just cut to the chase. Do you?
That was okay. Wait.
Do you think we went there?
Well, we did. You see, what they did, you have to understand, it was exactly 13 days from the next night of human sacrifice that they landed. And again, this is according to occult belief. They had to do it on that date to line up with numerology and gematria. And the moon was, of course, the designated place because of the year. 1969, you take the nines, reverse them, it's the first year of Lucifer. This is highly significant in the occult orders because it is believed that was the date in which the king of the despots was born.
Hey, that's I was born in 1969. What are you trying to say?
What was the exact date?
Mine?
Yeah,
June 26th.
Let's see, you're off the hook.
Oh, cool.
There was a specific time and date that was lined up here, and so you don't fit the pattern. No matter what some of your detractors may say, right. You're not the Antichrist.
Okay, well, along those lines, because I know people are itching for me to ask you this question. There is another card that is often paired with the NASA as a fraud card, and that is the Flat Earther card. It says, people laugh, but the Flat Earthers know something. What's your take on that card?
Again, the Illuminati, certain of these cards were done in such a way to cause these controversies. You see, the goal, we have to remember, the goal behind the Illuminati is to set up their New World Order. Now, if they make things obvious, I think anyone could figure this out. But they do it in a way that no one sees these things happening. That's why, among other things, they throw these controversial topics in to keep people away from what's really going on. It's the same thing with, do you remember, it was on January 1st, the year 2000, that all the computers were supposed to crash and burn because of Y2K. The computers supposedly had been programmed in such a way they could not turn over to the year 2000 and that they would all crash and burn. Well, you see, now, Rob, I had been on dozens of radio shows 3 years before that event was supposed to happen. And I was telling everyone, look up any of my shows before that, before 2000, and you will hear me warning people that this is an Illuminati smokescreen. Something else is supposed to happen. It wasn't supposed to be Y2K. It wasn't going to happen. I knew it. I know how they work. I was in it. I was a 7th-generation Illuminati witch, for goodness sakes. And I know the methodology, and I knew it was counterproductive to all of their plans, which meant there was something else coming that they were hiding behind the smokescreen, and sure enough, it was 9/11. This is the same thing with cards like that. These are smokescreens designated to keep you off the target, off the mark. It keeps people so distracted, so divided, that they're not paying attention to what's really going on. That's why you've got cards like that. Those cards are separated. And when I say separated, you have to understand, when you look at a number of those cards, you're going to see what looks like little gold capstones in the middle of one of the sides. Now, sometimes you'll see 2 capstones on 2 of the sides. Those capstones are there for a reason, and most people don't know this, but they connect one card to another card. I will give you a quick example off the top of my head. There were 2 cards in that deck. One is known as the Bill Clinton card. The other is the Hillary Clinton card. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, if you can't find them on deck, they're in my DVDs. I always document everything I talk about. Now, with those cards in particular, you will see Bill Clinton's card on the right-hand side, dead center. You see a gold capstone. It looks sideways, so the point is pointing outwards, on the right. Mm-hmm. The Hillary card has a gold capstone, but it's on the left-hand side of the card in the middle to where the card is pointing to the left. You connect both those cards by the gold points, and it shows an interesting photo. It shows Bill Clinton by itself. It looks like he's wearing some sort of, like collar you would expect from the 70s, something like that. However, when you connect the Hillary card, it shows Hillary is holding the end of a leash, and the leash is around Bill's neck.
Right.
Look at the cards you're talking about. Do they have a gold capstone?
Let me look it up. This freaked me out about the Bill Clinton thing, though, because this was long before he was really on the public stage.
Well, do you know what those cards are all about?
What?
Now, I'm going to tell you something here, and this is going to shock a lot of people. During the Clinton administration, so many people was asking me, who's in control of the White House? Is it Bill or Hillary?
Right.
And that was a constant theme. Well, the reason it got confusing, and ladies and gentlemen, let me clear this up for you. The reason the confusion was there was because Hillary Clinton is a 4th-level Illuminati witch. Bill is a 3rd. When orders were coming down from the federal government, well, Bill Clinton was the president. Hillary was just the first wife. He was in charge, so he told her what to do. However, if orders are coming down from the Illuminati, she's a 4th leveler, he's a 3rd leveler. He had to do what she said. Mm-hmm. That's what was going on. And ladies and gentlemen, among other things, look for a gold phoenix bird on the left-hand side of Hillary Clinton's outfit. See if she still wears it. You see, the gold phoenix bird, the phoenix bird is one of the oldest symbols in the Illuminati world in existence. The only one older to denote the Illuminati is the owl. And either one of them must face towards the left if it's genuine. And I'll bet you dollars to donuts you will find photos of Hillary Clinton's phoenix bird brooch on the left-hand side, and that the phoenix bird is pointing away to the left. Members of the Illuminati, high-level Illuminati witches, will wear that symbol. Look it up. See if there's any old photos out there.
Okay, so yeah.
But that's where the confusion came. No one can tell who was in charge of the White House, but if you notice, in the Illuminati cards, it shows Hillary Clinton's dominance, her authority over Bill Clinton.
Right. Well, I mean, they had this is 82, and they got Ronald Reagan in there, they got George Bush in there, they got the Clintons in there, they got Al Gore in there, so they clearly knew in advance who was going to be players on the world stage.
Who they were going to choose to be in charge.
Right. Okay, so on that flat Earth thing, there is an arrow on the top and on the right side, and there's also a weird-looking, strange logo of some sort inside the picture on the lower left corner. I don't even know
and you know,
describe it.
You know, it's even more interesting. And as I said, these cards are disconnected from each other. And again, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. That gold capstone is at the top.
And on the right side.
It connects to no other card in the Illuminati deck.
Arrows, when they're on the top, they don't connect to anything?
No. In the position they're at right now, when you have two arrows at any corner like that, they don't connect.
Okay.
Again, this is to throw off anyone who might be suspicious of those gold capstones. They don't connect to anything. As I said, those are separate cards. Those, as I say, those cards are there just to cause controversy and deception, so people just, get off on all these wild tangents, and instead of wasting all that time, whether the person's right or not, why don't you look behind the smoke screen and get ready for what's coming, or try to figure out what's coming ahead of time. As I said, this is simply a Y2K thing, a smoke screen, to hide what was coming down the road, 9/11. This is exactly what's going on with those cards.
Well, we only got 2 minutes left, so I'm kind of thinking.
You're kidding.
I wish I would have.
Let me put my eyeballs on.
I wish I would have pulled.
Oh my goodness, you're right.
Wish I would have pulled this card a lot earlier. But you know what? We'll have time to talk about it in Austin at the conference is coming up at the future conference.
Well, yes, as a matter of fact, if John Gableson's listen, I think I forgot to tell him what my fourth presentation was going to be about, and because so many people are talking about the cards again, I figured let's cover the Illuminati New World Order playing cards.
Well, there you go. So, maybe like last time.
And I'll bring all 7 sets. I'll bring all 7 sets, I promise, so people can see them for themselves.
Ah, right on. Maybe, last time we had a really cool kind of a round table deal with Doug Woodward, Doug Hamp, and myself. This year he's got a good lineup this year with, Freeman Fly, Douglas Hamp, Daniel Duvall, you, and me. We're gonna be there July 30th through August 1st. Doc, thanks so much for coming on. Great talking with you again.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
All right, good night, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Revolutionary Radio Project. See you back next week.